Hello there, one and all, and welcome to episode 428 of Love at First Scent with me, Persolaise, live on YouTube. As always, thank you very much for tuning in, whether you're watching live or you're watching the recording. If you haven't already subscribed to this channel, please do consider doing so, and make sure you click on the little bell so that you get notifications of new videos coming your way. And if you would like to find out how you can support my work, you should be able to see a link to my Ko-fi page in the video description below. First comment today goes to Ty, who says, Knize Ten, my second favorite leather fragrance. What's your favorite? You have to tell us now. Smarks is here as well. Jen O says, Knize. Rachel says hello. Nikki is saying hello all. Why are we doing this one? Well, because according to most sources, not all, but according to most sources, it celebrates its 100th anniversary this year. Some sources claim that it was released in 1925, but we're going to go with 1924 because we like a good anniversary here on the Persolaise channel. I have a bottle of this, says Gavin. I will go and spray it. Oh, so you should. And so I thought I would just spend a few minutes talking about it. Eric says, oh, lovely. I've put off buying this one so long, I feel I need to sample it again to check the formulation. Right. And that's why I'd like to do this one, because this is one that was bought just a few months ago, like 3 months ago. I have an oldish bottle, although even that bottle is not vintage, you know, by any stretch of the imagination. That bottle is maybe like, I don't know, 14 or 15 years old. But I happened to find myself, as one does, in Vienna in October. And this is a Viennese brand. It's a Venetian. Let's go back to the correct country. It's a Viennese gentleman's outfitter that was, I think, founded in the 19th century. The family, I think, had come over from Czechoslovakia. Knize is a Czech name, and then in 1924, 1925, they released this perfume called Knize Ten, which just happened to be composed by the dream duo of Francois Coty, as in, yes, that Francois Coty, and Vincent Roubert, who just happened to make sense like, you know, Iris Gris. So incredible duo. And so that's why we're smelling it, but that's why I thought I would bring the current bottle so that we can talk about how the current formulation feels and smells. But I'm not going to do a side-by-side comparison because I just want to see if I'm convinced that it's current. And then we will also just take a couple of minutes to talk about two from the range that I'm not over familiar with, but I picked them up while I was there. I've also got Knize Two, which is from the 70s, I believe. I've got it down as 1978. And Lady Knize, which I didn't even know very much at all, and that came out in the 30s. That, it seems, is from 1938. Dushan says, that's a modern version of Knize Ten. I will send the vintage version to my brother Ramsey. He will do a wonderful review. Ooh, that I would be interested to know. Okay, so let's have a spray. Let's label this. For those of you who don't know Knize Ten, and if you haven't smelt it, you really are in for a treat. I mean, it's perfume history. You need to smell this stuff. It is a classic, as in properly classic leather perfume, perhaps the most classic leather perfume, because it is the very sort of perfume that we think of now when we think of leathers, and it is because of Knize Ten that we have insert name of just about any leather perfume you can think of, but certainly something like Tuscan leather from Tom Ford and scents of that nature. Everyone should smell this at least once, says Rachel. I think this is pretty good. I mean, it actually feels really kind of bright and sparkling at the top, brighter than I remember it, but it's got that fantastic tanginess, and I've never ever been able to come up with a word better than tangy. It just makes me think of something that is at once citrusy and zesty, and yet also very kind of deeply dried and hide-like and leathery. It's beautiful. It's really and truly excellent. Eric says, I'm usually pretty forgiving of reformulations of classics, to be honest, especially ones I don't know in their older forms. I mean, yeah. So the leather, the kind of classic masculine leather scent, its trick, which I think was first done here, is to actually take a kind of tart and very, very well disguised fruit note. You know, you don't smell this and think of fruit, but it does have something at the top, which is a kind of super sharp, super tart, super acidic strawberry stroke raspberry, you know, that kind of feel. And then come your traditional leather materials like maybe castoreum, but not, for instance, that kind of butch leather, darker leather of something like Bondy from Fracas. So this isn't like kind of Chanel Antaeus leather. It's more Tom Ford Tuscan leather. But it's so gloriously diffusive as well. I suppose quite uncharacteristic maybe for a lot of masculine scents, but I don't care. We were talking in a previous video, which we don't need to mention now, about scents that, you know, simplicity is a very, very commendable attribute in any kind of artwork. But there's simplicity that is interesting and somehow feels as though it's actually not really simplicity, but it's complexity disguised very, very cunningly. It's a simplicity. And then there is something which is just very, very simplistic and you can dismiss it. There isn't very much for you to explore there. This is simple in absolutely the best sense of the word. It is such a gorgeous blend that you kind of smell it and you kind of get that it's a sort of dry citrusy leather. But once you start delving into it, you go, oh gosh, okay, so there's probably some kind of geranium here as well, maybe cloves, maybe some other kind of spices like cinnamon. It's very, very, very deceptively simple. And so because of that, it manages, like the very best perfumes, to hold a lot of contradictions in it. So on the one hand, it is a very, very kind of sharp-suited guy, you know, you sort of authority figure, but maybe somebody who wears their authority quite lightly. And even though it's a 1920s perfume, I always kind of picture more 1930s style men's outfits. So, you know, the very, very kind of slicked down hair and the long double-breasted jackets and people maybe wearing white, you know, the kind of aesthetic that maybe Armani were channeling with some of their men's designs. I guess in the 80s, you know, when they sort of went for things that were very, very tailored and yet also looked kind of relaxed at the same time. When is The Great Gatsby set? I can't remember. Is Gatsby set in the 20s? I suppose it would have been the 20s because it's got that kind of Gatsby-esque feel to it as well. Nikki says the Oris and leather work together so well here. It's a perfect leather. Yes, and thank you for mentioning Iris because it's definitely got a fantastic Iris note. Oh, Power Connection says 20s. Okay, so it is 20s, 30s. It's that kind of Great Gatsby sophistication. Gavin says, I think it's also of the era when the motor car was exciting. Yes, I suppose. All of those sorts of things are in here. My 2010 version is still good, says Gavin. I always think of it as the masculine counterpart to L'Heure Bleue because of the floral iris mix. That's a good comparison. I like that. I hadn't thought of that. I suppose it's because I mean, I quite happily wear L'Heure Bleue, but then I'll wear anything vanillic. It's just beautiful, and this is a good version. It's really, really, really gorgeously bright and sparkling at the top. I have a pre-sprayed one, not that I need a pre-sprayed one, but let's see how it's doing sort of 2 years on. Oh gosh, a little bit darker, yeah, a little bit more sort of brooding, but nice, and kind of darkly woody and maybe just a touch of soapiness as well. So happy birthday, Knize Ten. The ghosts of Francois Coty and Vincent Roubert, wherever you are, thank you very much for this. And as I say, if you haven't smelt it, you really should. Now, I'm not over familiar with the others. So let's do the one which I'm guessing is going to smell more old school because it's from 1938, the Lady Knize. I have a pre-sprayed one there as well. I knew Rachel wouldn't let us down, says Polish Cheap Car. Why? What's Rachel done? Have I missed it? Rachel, what have you done? you should have your own channel. Absolutely, but then at least you do a lot of writing and video work on other people's platforms, don't you? Eric says, speaking of value, how much is Knize 10 these days? I remember it being a steal. Yes, I don't think it's quite as cheap as it used to be, but it's certainly, I think very reasonably priced. This is a 125 ml bottle. Oh, I can't remember now. I think it was around the €100 mark, I think, or although I could be wrong, which, I mean, but yes, back in the day, I think you could pick up decent sized bottles for like sort of 40, 50 pounds. Right. Lady Knize then. Let's see. I don't know this one very well at all. Okay. I mean, this won't be exactly as it would have been in the 30s. I'm sure it's been reformulated countless times, and I cannot comment on the original, obviously. It's a very, very definitely, obviously, overtly retro, spicy floral, but it's nice. It's kind of like rose and cloves and something green happening in the background. Let's see what the official, what we're sort of meant to officially smell in here. Rose, coriander, clove, musk, and sandalwood. It's very attractive. It's very, very, very attractive, actually, and not excessively retro. Maybe whoever's done the reformulation has actually put some room in there for the material to breathe. There's something about it. Which Hermès is it making me think of? There is a kind of grand perfumery feel to it, which is a good thing. And it's a nicely done rose. It's a nicely done spicy rose, actually. But maybe there's a sort of powderiness, which is what makes it retro. How's it doing on the blotter? Right. Lady Knize, what's that like? What's it doing? Is it like a 24 Faubourg, says Angeline? Maybe that kind of thing, those ones, the one that kind of smelled old-fashioned as soon as it arrived. Or are you thinking of Amazon? I don't know. Am I? Maybe I am. Anyway, I'd have to check. Lady Knize. Very, very nice work, actually. Really, really pleasant musks. If there is some kind of synthetic sandalwood in here, it's definitely not kind of, ramming me over the head with its boorish personality. And that rose, spicy rose note is well sustained. Nice work. If you're after a kind of retro floral, you could do a lot worse than this. And Knize 2, I got because I had a quick sniff of it. Knize 2 is from the 70s, 1978. And I thought it was very interesting. I thought, oh, let me get a small bottle of this, because even though it was marketed as a masculine, oh, Gavin says £100 for 50 mils on the website. Oh, no, sorry, that's £63 for 50 mils. Well, nowadays, that's kind of pretty good, isn't it? I think. So anyway, Knize 2, I thought was interesting because even though it's marketed as a masculine, it's kind of doing a sort of floral, woody masculine thing that other brands didn't seem to do until a little bit later, when Caron released Troisième Homme, those sorts of, and Givenchy did Insensé. So an unashamedly floral masculine scent. And I thought, oh, let me pick this up. And yes, it's woody. It's very, very clean, quite unassuming. It's much, much, much quieter than Knize 10, much quieter. But what's striking about it is a sort of jasmine note, which I don't think you would expect, certainly not now, for something that is aimed at men. Knize 2, I can tell you, is meant to have jasmine, violet, rose, and lily of the valley. Now, there's a mix for something aimed at men. And at the top, lemon, neroli, and galbanum, and then, of course, the usual suspects of, musk and amber and oak moss and patchouli in the base. Yeah, but I was taken with this. I was taken with this because I thought, you know, you can never have enough scents in the vein of Troisième Homme in your collection. It's just not as diffusive as something like Troisième Homme, which I love as well, and maybe not as kind of 80s rough woody. And let us see what the pre-sprayed one is. Where is my Knize Two? Here's Knize Two. Yeah, again, nicely done. I mean, I think the high point for this brand in terms of their perfumery output was Knize Ten. Knize Ten is not going to be beaten, but also they haven't done lots and lots of things. They haven't tried to kind of push one perfume after another. The latest one they gave us apparently was in 2000 called Belle Epoque. There was something called Knize Forest released in the early 90s, which I haven't smelled. I think that is still around. I seem to remember I had a kind of quick sniff of it and thought, okay, not for me. But this is nicely done. Maybe a little bit thinner than it needs to be. And I wonder if the 1970s formulation would have benefited from some real oak moss to support those florals in the heart. But it is nicely done. And by the way, I'm only kind of able to, being male, I cannot multitask and I cannot speak and read at the same time, but I'm seeing a lot of pro Rachel sentiments being expressed, to which I absolutely add my voice as well. Rachel is the first lady in our FracCom. I'm happy to nominate and vote for her right now. Have you actually considered starting your own channel, Rachel? Maybe, I mean, I'm guessing you're a very, very busy person, but maybe you should. Mr. P would be your chief of staff, Rachel. I could. Let me finish by having another sniff of Knize Ten. Oh, it's so good. I never finished my analogy. Let's finish with this. Okay, so it's like the kind of, you know, well-groomed, well-suited, you know, gorgeously suited Gatsby-esque individual, but it's also it's also that kind of stallion imagery. You know, it's also the kind of the beast underneath, or the wild, untamed stallion underneath. And like the best perfumes, it somehow manages to encompass that duality. Gavin, there's your duality. And that will mean nothing to people who haven't watched the previous video, but I can hear you shouting bingo right now. It's an absolute classic. We're so lucky to still have it with us. And if you haven't smelt it, you really should. Happy birthday, Knize Ten. Right. Thank you very much for watching, folks. Stay tuned to social media for details of more videos coming your way. But until then, please be good, and my vote for Rachel. Okay, take care, folks. Bye now.